My name is Rick Riebesel. I'm the principal consultant with Business Transition Consulting. I speak quite a bit with business owners, and when I talk to them, I try to encourage them to do planning. And I would say that more than anything else, this is something that business owners don't immediately see the benefit of doing the process of planning. And when we approach a business owner and say, it would benefit you to plan, what we find is there's a lot of resistance. What are the things we hear? Well, we hear, we never know what's really going to happen, so why worry about it? Why spend time on something when we can't predict the future? We hear things like, we just don't ever get in the same place at the same time to have those discussions. We really don't think it's something that we need to do right now in the stage of our business. All these things are basically procrastinating, reasons to not do something that's essential. What I want to talk to you about is why planning is essential for the owners of a private business. The first thing that it does, and the most important thing that it does, if the process is done correctly, is that it aligns the owners of a business. What owners of a business should do is articulate, discuss their values with one another. If they do that, if they spend some time thinking about what their values are and attempt to discuss those values, they will align themselves one with the other. Now, if there's a conflict of values, that's another thing. But most of the time, we find that values are not in alignment necessarily, but certainly can coexist. We might have one owner who wants to bring his son or daughter in. We might have another owner who wants the business to be her lifelong occupation. We might have still yet another owner that wants to sell the business as advantageously as possible. There's nothing to say that all of these goals and all of these values can't be put together in a consensus that lasts over a period of time. But if we don't know what they are, if they're not expressed and not expressed honestly and transparently, then the owners are going to have a very difficult time forming a consensus. The next thing that engaging in a planning process does is that it establishes a decision-making procedure. Not only does it establish decision-making, but it establishes group decision-making. The reason group decision-making is so important is that if you stand in a mirror and make a decision, you don't know what the effect of that decision is on a good number of people. You have stakeholders, people who are affected by the decision. And if you haven't done research, if you don't really know, if you haven't talked to people who have done it before, then there's a good chance that the decision you make will not be a wise decision. Moreover, when we have a group of owners that come together and they each go through their own decision-making process, we've enhanced the quality of that decision-making. And when we do that, when we have that exercise in a planning procedure, the business tends to set up a decision-making policy group that is a wise group that does well, and it establishes a decision-making policy. This kind of structure is essential to the success of a business. The better the decisions that are made, the better the success that the business will have. Now, a plan is a grouping of decisions. So for any plan, whether we call it strategic or operational or a business plan, we're simply taking certain decisions and grouping them together. One of the things that businesses do incorrectly, and it's very injurious to the success of planning is that the goal is not linked appropriately to the action plan that's intended to see that the goal is achieved. So what we frequently have is that we'll have a policy-making group of owners get together and set goals that aren't appropriately communicated to the executives who need to do decision-making for an action plan and for metrics to monitor the progress of the actions to achieve the goal. In fact, what happens quite frequently is that we have a strategic plan that gets put in a 4-ring notebook. There are some discussions about what this plan means, but in terms of the action plan and the metrics and milestones designed to monitor that progress, they're soon forgotten. And in fact, what often happens is that decisions are made at the operational level that prevent the attaining of the goals set by the policymaking group. Why does this happen? Well, it happens because the plans are not integrated. What is the setting of the goal is not integrated with the decisions made about implementing the goal, and the monitoring is not successfully done so that the policymakers are aware of where the monitoring is. It should be that when a goal cannot be obtained, when the operational people know that a goal cannot be obtained, that knowledge should be immediately transmitted to the policymakers so the goals can be revised. There's really nothing worse than an unreasonable goal, because that goal will not be respected, it certainly won't be achieved, and it just will sit out there as something that will be an item of derision. However, if management is able to communicate what is going on in the progress toward a goal, and the goal turns out to be unreasonable, and it's changed in a way that is meaningful and appropriate, that decision will be respected, that decision will be a morale booster, and the progress and growth of the company will be aided. The last thing that planning does is that it gives us a tool for understanding the future. I have a lot of people say to me, why should I spend time planning when you can't predict the future? And you know, most of the time when we plan, we don't predict the future. But what we do have is a version of what we think will happen. And it enables us to ask the question, why didn't it happen that way? That is an incredibly valuable question to ask. Can we determine, can we see what it was that we overlooked? What did we miss so that we did not predict what would happen, that this goal wouldn't be obtained? And what can we change so that the goal can be obtained? The power of the planning process is considerable. And once it's begun, and once business owners see how it works, it leads to one success after another. It is a powerful and enduring process. But what I found is that it takes quite a bit to get it going. I hope that what I've said today will encourage you to think about the planning process, and I appreciate you watching this video. Thank you.